We are 5 days away from the new Premier League season, so here are my Premier League predictions for game week 1 of the 2023/24 Premier League season. We begin at Turf Moor, where newly promoted Burnley take on the champions Manchester City. I think there's only going to be one outcome in this one, Manchester City victory, and I'm going to go for a nice, comfortable 4-0 Manchester City win straight away. It really depends on what mood they are in. It could be 5-6-0. Of course, Erling Haaland will want to continue where he left off. 36 goals last season, the Golden Boot. They have lost Riyad Mahrez and Gundogan, but, Mahrez didn't really start that much as of, late. And Gundogan will be a miss. They have brought in Kovacic from Chelsea as a replacement to a very similar players. So it was a like-for-like switch from Manchester City. But yeah, we'll have to just wait and see how they get on. We move on now to their rivals, Arsenal, as they take on Nottingham Forest at the Emirates. Will Arsenal be able to give Manchester City another tough time this season? Are we going to see another fight between these two clubs this season? Arsenal, they didn't have the greatest of games when they went to the City ground towards the end of last season, but we are at the Emirates. They have brought in Kai Havertz from Chelsea. Declan Rice has come in for Granit Xhaka, who departed at the end of the season. I'm going to go for a 3-0 Arsenal win. I think they're going to get off to a good start, both of these clubs. So we'll move on now to the next one, where Bournemouth take on West Ham United. This one going to be an interesting one. Bournemouth did really well last season to stay up. West Ham, of course, now that they're not in any European competition this season, we'll have to wait and see how high they can climb the table. Of course, pre-season for them hasn't been the greatest, but we don't go off pre-season games. Of course, they've lost Declan Rice, but it'll be interesting to see how West Ham do this season. This time out, I do think West Ham will have a good season, and I think they're going to pick up a 2-1 away victory here at the Vitality Stadium to start off their season. Next up, Brighton, who take on newly promoted Luton Town, who I don't think will have a good season. Brighton, last season last season was really good. Can they replicate it? Good opportunity here against a newly promoted side. Should be an easy victory at home as well. I'm going to go for a 3-0 Brighton and Hove Albion victory in this one. Next up, Everton versus Fulham at Goodison Park. These two clubs will be interesting to watch this season because Everton obviously almost got relegated last season. Fulham, when they came up from the Championship, the yo-yo club that they were they going to drop back down? In this case, they didn't. They had a pretty good season, but towards the end of last season, they didn't have the greatest of games. Certainly dropped quite a few places, but it's such an easy Premier League season this season for, the likes of Everton, really. I think really Everton can get a mid-table finish this season with the likes of Luton and Burnley and Sheffield United that have come up. Of course, we've still got the teams that came up from the Championship the previous season that we expected to go back down, with Nottingham Forest, Fulham and Bournemouth. And it's going to be, there's going to be a big difference between the bottom half of the table and the top half of the table this season. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game. It will be a pretty interesting Premier League this season with the clubs that I have just mentioned. Okay, next on, at Bramall Lane, newly promoted Sheffield United take on Crystal Palace. Sheffield United, last time they got promoted in the Premier League, they did really well, finished in around 8th place, I think it was, 8th or 7th. Will they be able to repeat what they did that previous time, or are they going to be fighting relegation the entire season? Their opponents, Crystal Palace, normally just a mid-table side. Roy Hodgson still in charge. I'm going to go for a 2-0 away win for Crystal Palace to start off their season. Next up, Newcastle United versus Aston Villa. Going to be an interesting one for Newcastle United this season, of course. They've got European football. They've got Champions League. So Are they going to be saving some of their players for the bigger games in the bigger competition, if you would like to call it that? And maybe they'll drop a few places in the Premier League as a punishment for doing so. Will be an interesting season for Newcastle. I do think that we will still get a top 10 finish. I'm not sure if they'll make it into any European placements, though. I think they'll get off to a good start at the start of the season, though. No Champions League games for a while, and I'm going to go for a big scoreline, 3-1 home win. That home support is going to push Newcastle on to pick up all 3 points. And then we move on now to the Brentford Community Stadium, where Brentford take on Tottenham. Bit of a London derby here. I think there'll be quite a few goals. Tottenham last season, they struggled. Brentford just doing really well, just sat in mid-table every season. I think we're going to get a high-scoring draw in this one. I'll go for a 2-2. And then we'll move on now to Stamford Bridge for the penultimate game of Game Week 1 as Chelsea take on Liverpool. Probably the game of the week, this one. The last 4 times that these sides have faced each other, it's ended in a 0-0. Prior to that, we've had a 1-1 and a 2-2. So we've normally had some pretty even games. I'm going to back Chelsea, though, in this one. A narrow 1-0 win last season. Both clubs had a pretty poor season last season compared to what you would normally have been used to. The problem with Chelsea was that they had just too many players in their squad. Too many, pretty good players as well, and they all wanted to be in the starting 11 because that's what they were used to, the previous seasons. But then they made too many transfers, spent too much money. The managers couldn't cope. I think we're going to see something good with Pochettino now in charge. And I think a narrow win to start off the season. Next up, we finish off. Final game is Manchester United against Wolverhampton Wanderers at Old Trafford. I think there's only going to be the one winner here, Manchester United. Whenever they play at Old Trafford at home, start of the season, it normally ends well for them. Of course, in their last pre-season friendly, Man United, did look pretty stupid. Of course, conceded a goal from the halfway line. Mason Mount missed an open net from about 5 metres out. And of course, in the Premier League, everything changes and pre-season means nothing. But there we go. That's it for my Game Week 1 predictions. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in my next video.